Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare.
I was woken up by my 4-year-old daughter face, inches from mine. She looked right into my eyes and whispered, "I want to peel all your skin off." Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. Parents of Reddit, what is the creepiest thing your young child has ever said to you?
Number 1.
Commenter. I was tucking in my 2-year-old. He said, "Goodbye, Dad." I said, "No, we say goodnight." He said, "I know. But this time it's goodbye." Had to check on him a few times to make sure he was still there. Person B. When I was in 8th grade, I had the same thing as him. I was totally convinced I was not going to wake up. Totally thought for some reason that if I went to sleep, I would die. Eventually, I got tired, accepted my fate, went to my parents' room, said bye, without waking them, and went to bed. I woke up, in case you were wondering.
Number 2.
While changing my daughter in front of the open closet door. She kept looking around me and laughing. I asked her what was so funny. She said, "The man." To which I replied, "What man?" She then pointed at the closet and said, "The man with the snake neck." I turned around and nothing was there. I'm afraid to look into the history of my house to see if anyone hung themselves in the closet. At least she wasn't scared.
Number 3.
Commenter. My 3-year-old daughter stood next to her newborn brother and looked at him for a while, then turned and looked at me and said, "Daddy, it's a monster, we should bury it." Person B. Apparently, my older sister said shortly after I was born, "Can we take him back?" and then a few weeks later, "Let's bring him to the dump." Person C. My friend's daughter asked if they could throw her new brother in the trash after they had him home for about a week. This must be a common thing with kids when dealing with new additions to the family. How do I get rid of it? Person D. Apparently, when he was a child and my grandmother brought his sister home from the hospital, my dad looked at his new baby sister in her crib and said, "Mom, it's not nice to kill a little sister, is it?" They apparently watched him very closely with her after that, although as time passed it seems he had the right instincts.
Number 4.
Commenter. I was on a bus recently and we were stopped outside a walk-in clinic. A little girl in the seat in front of me turned to her dad and said, "Death is the poor man's doctor." And that was that. Person B. The very first time I was ever on a plane, we hit some turbulence and the man sitting next to me was obviously very anxious about it, as was I. His daughter, I'm guessing about 5, was sitting in the aisle seat and she looked at us and held his hand and said, "Daddy, don't be afraid to die." I couldn't even deal with that. I took some Xanax and went to sleep.
Number 5.
Commenter. Why are you crying? Bad man. What bad man? There. Points behind me at a dark corner of the room. Lamp on the bookshelf next to said darkened corner falls off as soon as I turned to look. She slept in our bed that night. Person B. One time I was babysitting some boys and was upstairs putting them to bed. I heard the front door open and one of the boys says, "Mom's home." Mom was not home. I'd locked the door before going upstairs, and when I went back downstairs, thinking the mom was actually home, even though she would usually call out, "I'm home," the door was still closed and locked. Person C. When my daughter was 2.5 we moved into a new condo. For the entire year we lived there she would scream bloody murder every time we went into her bathroom. About 6 months into our lease I was leaving for work one day and I got stopped by 2 men, asking if I knew where to find the owner of the condo. I said no. Turns out the owner was wanted on murder/torture charges. The whole apartment was creepy as hell the entire time I lived there. About a year after I moved I researched the owner out of curiosity and found out the guy had a habit of murdering lovers, and most had been found in bathtubs in various locations. I could never shake the feeling that something had happened in that bathroom, and that's why my daughter refused to go in there. I hated that condo.
Number 6.
When my daughter was 4.5 years old she said to me, "Why did you name me Carly when my real name is Carly? I was inside you and I came out too soon, and later on I was inside you and came out at the right time." How could she have possibly known that I had a miscarriage when I was 5 months pregnant? I was talking about naming the baby Carl if it was a boy or Carly if it was a girl. We never discussed it at all.
Number 7.
My 2-year-old has been running from rooms screaming lately. The reason is always a guy. A guy. I'd go in the room and ask what was the matter. She would point into the empty room, terrified, whispering, "A guy." At first I thought I'd need to rethink everything I thought I believed about ghosts. Then, I realized a guy was actually a fly. She is terrified of flies.
Number 8.
My 5-year-old son asked me last week, what do you see through the black circles in my eyes when you're controlling me when I'm at school? I immediately told him I don't control you, and he just said oh and went on his way. I'm curious to know more of how the world works through his eyes though.
Number 9.
Commenter. I was sound asleep, and at around 6 a.m. I was woken up by my 4-year-old daughter face, inches from mine. She looked right into my eyes and whispered, "I want to peel all your skin off." The backstory here is I had been sunburned the previous week, and was starting to peel. In my sleep-addled state, however, it was pretty terrifying for a few seconds. I didn't know if I was dreaming, or what was going on. Person B. My older sister did the same thing to my dad when she was 4, it's my favorite story. She was a preemie and small for 4-yo. One night my big 6 feet 6 inches dad woke up to his adorable little girl centimeters from his face. He screamed, she screamed and cried, Mom woke up screaming, sis screamed more, Mom slapped dad, picked up sis, asked what's wrong, and my sis just says I had to pee. I don't have to now. Turns out she needed help getting the bathroom door open but didn't want to wake anyone up, so she thought it at my dad. Waking up to that still haunts him to this day, and my sister is 28 now.
Number 10.
Commenter. I don't have kids, but once, visiting some friends on a farm, my buddy's youngest girl, 5 or 6, at the time, was afraid of the chickens. I tried to explain to her that the chickens weren't there to hurt us, but she wasn't having it. So I'm sitting around the fire pit, looking at one of the chickens a few feet in front of me when I feel hot breath in my ear as she whispers, "See? He's always watching." Horrific and hysterical all at once. Person B. I have a chicken one too. I was babysitting a friend's kid, who was about 3, and we were playing with a fake tool set in my backyard. He was holding a plastic hammer and saw. One of our pet chickens came walking over near us. The kid got a sort of disconnected look in his eye, and muttered under his breath, "I never promised I wouldn't hurt the chickens." I went to pick him up and told him not to hurt the chickens, and he just muttered again softly, "I never promised."
Number 11.
My son, 6, asked my mother to lay down on her stomach, then he sat on her butt and started bouncing up and down and proclaimed, "Now we're mating like reptiles. Thanks Discovery Channel."
Number 12.
My coworker's 4-year-old daughter always thought that the rattling of the water pipes in the kitchen cupboards were white wolves, and the sound always scared her. One day she was sitting at the kitchen table and she said, "Mom, the white wolves aren't bad. They're our friends." Her mom encouraged the idea by saying, "Yes. The white wolves are protecting us. They are our friends." Then her daughter added in, "They're our friends, but not the man who crawls on the floor and stands by my bed."
Number 13.
I work in a preschool. Creepy shit gets said and done all the time. The one that sticks out to me happened last year. There is a small kitchenette area in our classroom that the kids use during free time for playing house or whatever pretend games they think up. There was one little girl that I was keeping a close eye on, mostly because of how withdrawn from the other kids she was. I noticed she was playing with a baby doll in the kitchenette, rocking it back and forth and singing to it. She then took the baby, shoved it into the play oven and slammed the door shut. She turned around, looked straight at me and said, "Sometimes bad babies go in timeout," in the creepiest little girl voice I've ever heard, before smiling and running off.
Number 14.
When I was about 3, we had a cat that had stillborn kittens. I asked my father if we could make crosses for them, which he did. As he was making them I asked, "Aren't those too small?" "Dad, what do you mean?" "Me, aren't we going to nail them to them?" "Dad," after several moments silence, "we're not going to do that." "Me, oh."
Number 15.
Commenter. My toddler went through a phase where she would just constantly say hi to things. Hi 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 hi. One day, it came out sounding more like die 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 die. So I say to her, "What's that you're saying?" And she turns to face me and just whispers, "Die." Person B. My little girl did that. But now she says, "I'll kill you." And runs at us. It's terrifying, but then she just tackles us with a hug. Person C. My son used to lay on his back in his crib while holding his feet in his hands and rocking back and forth. He was still in the baby babble stage, and he would chant, "Die, die, 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 die," over and over, sometime while looking at me and smiling. It was cute and creepy at the same time. I knew it was just baby talk, but it was unnerving nonetheless.
Number 16.
A little over a year ago, my daughter, who was 5 at the time, randomly asked me, "Daddy, are you going to die soon?" I was like, no, Dad is fine." But, strangely enough, I'd had stiffness in my leg for like 4 days. So I end up calling the doctor, one thing leads to another, And I'm in the hospital for a week with deep vein thrombosis and a blood clot in my lung. Probably would have died during the plane trip I was planning on going on a few days later. 2 days ago she asked me the exact same thing.
Number 17.
Commenter. My brain is telling me to do things I don't want to do. He's 4. Like many kids, he has an imaginary friend. He has just correctly identified the imaginary friend as my brain. So when he says my brain is telling me to do things I don't want to do, he means my imaginary friend wants to play a game that I don't want to. Person B. My son said something to me like that once. He was around 4 or so, and we were driving home one day just listening to the radio and being two chill awesome people. And he said to me, "Mommy, I feel like I want to hurt you right now, but I know I don't, but I feel like I do. I feel so mad at you." It creeped me out, but then I figured it was some surge of hormone in his developing brain or some electrical anomaly making him feel that way temporarily. Person C. When I was a child, my grandfather gave me a nice plate. It had gold rims and was very pretty, and said, "Be really careful, that's Nana's favorite plate." I promptly dropped it on the ground and it shattered. When I was asked why I said that, my brain told me to. I wasn't a problem kid in the slightest, and I was a goody-goody. If somebody told me before that Nana's favorite plate had been broken, I probably would have cried, lol. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.